It could be the most important question mankind has asked since the beginning of time. When and how did God create the heavens and the earth and the living creatures and all the things around us? The Bible tells us that God created everything in 6 days. Yet it's generally accepted that life as we know it evolved over millions of years. Which is right? Are they both right? Over the next 12 episodes, we'll explore the evidence that unlocks the mysteries of Genesis like never before and helps answer some of the most profound questions of our time. You see, as science and technology advance, we learn that the ancient text of the Bible has more truth in it than we could have ever imagined. So we'll explore this scientific evidence from the design of the universe to the origins of life, from dinosaurs and Noah's flood to the development of modern civilization. Let's start this exploration with what we can see with our own eyes, the mysteries and wonders of the world around us. What do you see when you look at the world? Do you see the beauty of nature? Do you see the patterns on the wings of butterflies? Do you see the rhythm and order in the rising and setting of the sun, or the ebb and flow of the tide? To understand how the world came to be, how we came to be, we have to consider the fundamental question. Was the universe designed, or did it just happen? Hi, I'm Marcus Lloyd, and in this series, we will tackle this question in a way that you might not be used to. We'll explore these and other mysteries of the very first book of the Bible, the book of Genesis. Design is important. You see, when we consider the world around us, people, atoms, plants, animals, outer space, do we see randomness or do we see design? Is all of this around us simply happening by chance? Or did some designer plan it? Let's take a look at the evidence. Take, for instance, the elephant. Now, the elephant's trunk can breathe, touch, even grasp like a hand. Or look at the hummingbirds. They have a unique design that allows them to hover, to fly sideways, to fly backwards with wings that beat at 80 beats per second. Accident or design? When we look around at the big picture, we see only a few major types of creatures based mostly on where and how they live. We see water creatures, air creatures, land creatures, and man. In 1735, Carl Linnaeus grouped animals, plants, and even minerals into different categories based on their similarities. It's the hierarchy and classification system that's still used today. He noticed that all mammals share certain characteristics, same for birds. The point is that there are over 1 million species of living things, and others still undiscovered. But even with all this vast diversity, all living things can be grouped or clustered into just a few types. Why do so many diverse branches of life share so many characteristics? Why is there similar design?
Most scientists agree that if you provide the same set of environmental conditions, the same circumstances, that a creature is going to evolve the same set of features in order to fit that environment. So we have natural selection causing similar creature features. And so that's where Charles Darwin came in, suggesting that natural selection was part of the answer. And so his conception was that nature, in a way, selects certain organisms within a population, the ones that best fit their environments. And then it sort of deselects the other ones. And the prevailing view is that these kinds of changes or adaptations took a long time. We're talking millions of years. One of the textbook examples of adaptation is when an early fish began to crawl on a shoreline, and it began to change and adapt its fins into legs. So we adapt fins to legs as an example of evolutionary change. So if creatures actually do adapt and can adapt any feature, then given enough time and death, given enough time, you can adapt any creature into any other creature.
So, according to that explanation, my opposable thumb is more or less just a random upgrade from other mammals. Now, this explanation also suggests that things change over long periods of time. In theory, given a few more million years, my dog could develop a bigger brain or opposable thumbs. See, there's no master plan. What we see is just how things have ended up. Now, have you ever seen animals that camouflage themselves to blend in with their surroundings? In the scientific world, this is called mimicry. For example, a chameleon. If he needs to be green, he'll be green, or brown, or striped, or spotted, or whatever he needs. Even humans will intentionally imitate what we see in nature. For instance, Leonardo da Vinci invented a flying machine based on his study of birds. So, why do we see mimicry among plants and animals?
I think the ultimate example of mimicry is got to be the octopus, especially the mimic octopus, which was only discovered in the last few decades, because this is the only creature that mimics not just one other creature, but it mimics at least 15 other different creatures. And it can morph its body because of its incredible design to make itself look just like these other creatures, a lionfish, a sea snake, a flatfish, and a dozen others. On this mimic octopus, the resolution of coloration on its skin is just about the same as what we see on our television sets, as far as dots per square inch. And so it can make itself exactly colorized to the creature that it's mimicking.
The most common explanation is that all of these creatures, with all their complexity, just happen to randomly end up that way. It makes me wonder if something else might be going on. Could it be that there is a designer? Let's explore this another way. Now, you may ask me, why do you see design in everything? Well, it could be because one creator made them all. You see, things become very clear once you add a creator to the very complex world that we live in. You know, I think I'm just gonna make sure that this engine was designed properly. I wonder if scientists ever analyze beauty in a lab. Because the question is, why is there such a kaleidoscope of colors and variations of beauty in nature? Why such elegant designs? Why not have a world of gray? I mean, what would it matter? Well, beauty is not random. It exists for the enjoyment and aesthetic pleasure for us humans. Only a designer, a master artist would do that. So, design is beautiful, but design is also functional. When you study the anatomy of a bird, you learn all the ways the design of their bodies allows them to fly. They have hollow bones that make them lighter. Their respiratory system is different in that it flows in just one direction to make breathing more efficient as they fly. Their wings are just long enough to lift and soar based on the weight and size of the bird's torso. Yet one mystery remains: feathers. There's no evidence of any change over time or intermediate steps where birds gradually grew feathers. Feathers just appeared when birds appeared, fully functional with just the right aerodynamics so birds can fly. How do you explain that? All scientists agree that there's such a thing as adaptation. But creation scientists would say that animals only adapt within their own kind. Horses to zebras, Great Danes to cockapoos, but not from one kind to another kind. They would say that adaptation doesn't come from an external source. It's built into the DNA of every living thing. Our DNA contains the program that runs our body. This ability to adapt is encoded in that DNA. Nature doesn't select. It's part of the design of every living thing.
In a sense, DNA is a blueprint. It contains the instructions to make 2 arms, 2 legs, 10 fingers, 10 toes, and so forth. But it does so much more than that. You have embedded in that code the tools, the toolkit, the toolbox that executes that plan, all rolled into one molecule. And in addition to that, so this is really a chemical language at the submicroscopic level. Blueprint, toolbox. It also functions as an information processor. So if it takes that much intelligence to do each of these functions, each of these objects, each of these roles separately, how much more intelligence would it take to combine them into one? And so therefore, how much more intelligence must have been behind the origin of this first molecule?
So, are we to believe that nature randomly created all these elements that allow the octopus to change into a near infinite variety of colors? No, we're looking at the creator's handiwork, hard at work in the DNA of a complex, beautiful creature. Now, perhaps the most striking example of design is reproduction.
Evolution is not the explanation for what we see in reproduction. When we flip it around on the positive side, we see another profound evidence for design. So we begin all humans begin as a single cell. Sperm meets egg, male and female, and now you have the zygote in technical terms. And that has within itself all the instructions for building the body. So anyone who's cracked a cell biology book, and any cell biologist should know, when they're looking at the cell, we're not looking at the product of time and chance and of evolution and random changes. We're looking at a superintelligence. It only can be a superintelligence who's put this together in the first place. There really is no other rational explanation for something that profound inside you and I.
Okay, let's review. When we look at our world, what do we see? Random accident or design? See, we talked about the theories about natural selection and the random processes that supposedly made, well, everything. And we talked about the evidence that points to a grand design. Now, throughout our discussion, there's someone we've sort of talked around. And of course, that's God. What does he have to say about it? Let's take a look. You see, the Bible reveals things about God. We learn by looking at his creation. If he does exist, man, he's got to be really smart. The brilliant scholar Paul did what we did. He looked at the world around him to decide whether this was all random or the work of God, the designer. He told the Roman believers and us that his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world and the things that have been made. You see, God is wise, and that's one of the things we would expect a creator to be. God laid out for us in the first chapter of Genesis the steps he wisely took to create the world. So, what do you think? The creation scientist explains our complex world with just one assumption that pretty much justifies what we see. In fact, there's a principle called Occam's razor that says if you have competing ideas, the one with the fewest assumptions is the logical choice. Or you could just say, keep it simple. Now, it's looking to me like there is a creator. But I can understand you might be saying, I look around and I also see death, decay, and ugliness. Did God do that also? Or you might be saying, what about the fossils, the dinosaurs? These are all great questions, and we'll get to that. A more important question might be, if the world was planned and purposed by God, what does that say about you? Our world didn't happen by chance. It was both planned and purposed by God. He promises that. As I have planned, so shall it be. And as I have purposed, so shall it stand. Recognize the designer who made you and walk in the works he has purposed for you. Now, having seen the beauty and wonder of nature with your own eyes, perhaps you see the design of the universe, and you'll wonder, what more is there to know?
As technology advances, we get ever closer to the answers. How did life begin? What happened after Noah's flood? Where do dinosaurs fit in? Did the universe explode into existence, or will the evidence lead us to another conclusion?
Keep watching as we explore these questions and unlock the often surprising mysteries of Genesis.